puts that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
That's right, coffee's for closers only. That's why I'm sitting here with my big cup of coffee, a Black Rifle, sitting there talking Giants. Want to talk about the key cogs of the Giants roster this year, the one player the Giants cannot live without. I also want to do the battle of the quarterbacks. We had some fun on the stream the other day with the T-Brad dropping in, and I went through the quarterbacks in the NFC East. I went through the starters and I went through the backups, and I asked him directly, who would you rather have as the starting quarterback for the Giants in 2022? Daniel Jones or blank. And I only went through the NFC East quarterbacks. And we're going to get into that in a minute, but I was reading an article about how Tyrod Taylor is the most vital cog in the Giants roster right here, in the Giant arsenal, the player that the Giants could least afford to lose. And I was thinking about that. I'm saying that's kind of the easy way out. There's no easy way out. There's no way home. But you know what? I'm thinking, and I was looking at the roster, and I said, well, you know, you could say this, because if you go back to the last couple seasons with Mike Glennon, with Colt McCoy, the fact that the Giants have not had a quality backup quarterback since Eli Manning, which is funny to say. But even going past the Eli Manning days, you had you had the David Carrs. You had players like that backing up. You had Jarrett Lorenzen. We never really had a true quality backup in years. And we never really carried three quarterbacks on a roster for years. I mean, Parcells did it, especially with Sims, Rutledge, and Hostetler. But we've really never had that safety net. We haven't had that guy recently. We've tried to draft a few guys. Davis Webb comes to mind, of course, is now back with the Giants. But I laugh, though, because I think to myself, at this point in time, is there a guy on this roster right now that is indispensable? That if we lose him, the season could be lost. I remember when we lost Corey Coleman that year. And so many people panicked that the season was lost. And they were probably right. But I was thinking about this. If you look at what the Giants have been doing in OTAs, if you take a look at what the Giants have been doing in minicamp, the things that they've been doing is it looks like a lot of short three-step drops, which tells me it's going to be very reliant on the run game. You have an offensive line that you're going to have 4 new starters. I'm not sold on Glowinski yet. I know there are dirt bags in this, but I'm not sold on him yet. He almost got benched last year in Indianapolis. And if you take a look at his career outside of Indianapolis, you have to be concerned that was he a systems player? You got John Feliciano playing center. That's going to be interesting because the fact is that he's only played like 300 snaps his entire career at center. Is this going to be another Nick Gates experiment? You got a rookie also starting. So you're going to have 4 offensive linemen that are brand new to this team, brand new to starting, brand new to working together. So that could potentially be a recipe for disaster. And I understand if people sit there and say, let's say Daniel Jones goes down, and let's say that let's say Tyrod Taylor goes down. And so many people want to.
That's great. That's just fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? We're some real pretty shit now, man.
But see, I don't think we will be. Not that I have tremendous amount of faith in Davis Webb, but I have a player in mind, which is very easy, number 26, who is going to be more of a vital cog to the Giants than Tyrod Taylor. Why? Because this is going to be a run-heavy team. This is going to be a north-south team. This is going to be a team that is going to try to move the pile. This is going to be a very quick 3-step drop timing offense, it looks like. Unless it changes. This is going to be a run-reliant game. This is going to be a game. This is going to be a team that is going to be back in the old school 86 Giants. You're going to run the ball to set up the pass. You're also going to have Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. Hopefully he can reach the pinnacles of his rookie season in reference to catches and yards. You're going to pair him up with Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney. You could probably put him, Barkley that is, and Toney in the backfield together, or Wan'Dale, and flank one of the other guys out. And, of course, having the venerable sounds of Kenny G. It's going to be one of those offenses that is going to be predicated on the run. It's going to be predicated on moving the pile, keeping the chains moving, ball control offense. Because I know as much as they say we are going to let the peacock fly in reference to Daniel Jones, how true is that statement, though?
You can't keep me cooped up in here, okay? I am a peacock. You gotta let me fly.
People have to understand the Giant organization is going to say anything right now about Dan Jones. And everything they say is going to be great. Same thing with the coaching staff. But I still think he's going to have a very short lease because I think it's going to be, I think they understand their roster is not devoid of talent, but but is not full of, the cupboard's not bare, but you know what? The cupboard's got some food that's reaching its expiration date. And I think that's going to be the issue. And I think Barkley's going to be the key. I don't think you're going to run him 35 times because you did go out and get a quality backup. I think you're going to try to run him 20 times and maybe give him another 7 or 8 receptions out of the backfield. But he is going to be the vital cog. And I'm telling you right now, if we lose Barkley and you're going to be relying on Daniel Jones, bad things are going to happen. If you lose Barkley and you're going to be relying on Tyrod Taylor, Davis Webb, bad things are going to happen. And I'm telling you right now that Barkley is going to be the key to this season. He's going to be the key to this offense. He's going to be the key to moving this ball. Now, speaking about the offense of the Giants, like I mentioned before, I spoke to T-Brad, and I said to him, this was on the stream, and if you want to know what T-Brad's answers were, you need to go watch the stream. But I talked to him, and I said, I picked a quarterback to go against Daniel Jones. I took only NFC East quarterbacks. And we're going to do this once a week. And one of the quarterbacks that I said, okay, you could either have, in 2022, you could either have Daniel Jones or you can have blank. And one of the quarterbacks at the end, I said, you could either have Daniel Jones or you can have Taylor Heinicke. And now I thought this was going to be an easy selection. Everyone knows that just 2 years ago, Heinicke was almost out of the league. Heinicke was turning around. I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't in the league. He came in late due via injury and ineptitude of play. Came in and had that one playoff game where he threw for over 300 yards and a touchdown. I think he threw exactly for 300 yards and a touchdown. So you came into the 2021 season thinking with Mr. Fitzpatrick playing that you weren't going to have to worry about your quarterback situation, that Heinicke wasn't going to have to play more than maybe 2 or 3 games, but he ended up playing 15 games with a 7-8 record, threw for over 3,419 yards, 65% of his passes, 20 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. I was also shocked by the fact that he had run for over 313 yards on 60 carries and a touchdown. I didn't know that. I didn't know he had the wheels. I admit when he played the Giants in game 2 of the season, I thought there was going to be nothing there. I was not overly ready to hype him against the Giants. I thought the Giants were going to steamroll him, but of course he did throw. That was the one game he threw for over 300 yards last year, and he beat the Giants. I believe it was 30-29. So if you take a look at that, you're like, wow, you know what? And honestly, his offense wasn't much better in reference to talent and the skill position than the Giants. His offensive line may have been a little bit better, but he also had to deal with injuries. But he did not have, he's got one wide receiver and one running back, sort of what the Giants had. But he is a guy that was a streak quarterback. And I laugh because you look at the Giant game, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 73% of his passes. And basically, they had this run then and towards the early half of the season where they lost 4 in a row against New Orleans, Kansas City, Green Bay, Denver, and Tampa. He did not play poorly in those games, but he did not play well enough to win. Then they went on a 4-game streak against Tampa, Carolina, Seattle, and the Raiders. Then they lost 4 more in all divisional games against Dallas, and Philadelphia, which basically killed them in the division. And then, they turned around and beat the Giants 22-7 that final game of the season. Now, if you look at the stats and you take a look at and what he has done at 28 going on 29 years old, it's interesting because if you take a look at Daniel Jones this season, and I'm going to be honest, and I've said this before, what Taylor had to work with, what Heinicke had to work with, was not much better than what Daniel Jones had to work with. And Daniel Jones, of course, played in 11 games, didn't finish all of them, was 4-7, 64% of his passes, 2,428 yards, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, also ran for over 300 yards. But he also, and within that period of time, but he actually ran for 298 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if you take a look, and of course we know that Heinicke is going to be backing up Carson Wentz. So you never know. Heinicke could be playing, even though Carson Wentz had what you refer to as an Iron Man season for himself last year in Indianapolis. But I laugh, though, because I think in some ways and in some regards, Taylor Heinicke that is his career peak. I don't think he's going to be any worse than he is now, and I don't think he's going to be any better. And I do think that potentially, and this is kind of sad to say, but I'm going to say it anyways, that potentially Daniel Jones's peak might be Taylor Heinicke. might be the Tyler Heinicke level. I don't think Jones is ever going to come close to playing where he played back in 19, because again, he was a rookie who came in with no film, and then we see what happens when the league got film on him. His stats have fallen exponentially. But I think his ceiling, Jones, could be Heinicke. Is that a bad thing? No, because I think Tyler Heinicke can win you some football games. I don't think he's a guy that's going to get you to the playoffs. If he does, it's probably going to be with 9 or 10 wins, and potentially maybe he could do something in the playoffs like he did that one playoff game he had. But I don't think he's going to be a stalwart in this league. I don't think he's going to be this guy that everyone's going to ooh and ah about. I think he is what he is. But the question is, quarterback number 1, would you rather have Daniel Jones or Tyler Heinicke? And I'm not going to tell you who I want to pick. I'm going to do that. I'm going to release that in the next video. And like I said, we're going to go through all the quarterbacks in the NFCs, but this is going to be round 1. This round 1 is a doozy. It could be a knockout. And I want to hear it in the comments. Who would you rather have, Tyler Heinicke or Daniel Jones for the 2022 season? We got a lot of fun videos coming up. We got a lot of high production videos coming up because we're going to be doing less videos during this little slow season. We're going to have a lot of fun doing a whole bunch of different stuff. We'll do a stream maybe once a month or two, maybe more. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. And again, this is Tim with the Online Big Blue, bringing you the best of New York Giants sports talk entertainment. And as always, if you could like, if you subscribe, if you can ring that bell, you know what it means. That goes on.